What's up, everybody? We are back for some MMA DFS picks on DraftKings UFC Vegas 55. Holly Holm, Vieira. We are here with everything you need: lineup strategies, picks, best bets, everything for this UFC Vegas 55 card. Again, FanDuel, DraftKings, Yahoo, betting, whatever you need. We're here. I'm Brian Jester. Welcome, co-founder of Occupy Fantasy. It's like my 100th podcast or video in the last 7 days. Mouth's running dry, but we got to do this video. So what's up? I'm here with Jake, MMADFS.com. Jake, what's up, dude?
What's up, man?
Not a whole lot. Not a whole lot. Excited to get another slate here. We got next week off, so that just means we got to double our allocation this week, right?
I'm pretty sure that's how that math works out. Yep.
Okay, so let's get into it. What we do in these videos, we break down the main event, what it means for betting and DFS. There are no newcomers for a change on this card. No fighters making their UFC debuts. So we're going to play a new game this week, so stay tuned. I think you'll like it to talk about fighters who have just a couple of UFC fights under their belt. Fights you want to target, a couple prize picks. Be sure to use our promo code, get that 100% deposit match bonus, and our stream parlay of the week. So, Jake, let's get into it. Last week, you and I talked about the Rakic main event and how the ownership followed a bit as far as it being a slower paced fight, and it was one of the lower owned main events. And right back again this week with a Holly Holm main event. I think we'll see pretty considerable lower ownership than we would typically see, especially on an 11 fight card for a 5-rounder. But give me the breakdown on this fight and what you're thinking the field will do and how we should approach it for DFS.
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely going to see another low-owned 5-round fight, even lower than last week, I think. So, what you said. But yeah, we got Holly Holm coming in, 40 years old, hasn't fought in 19 months since she did that crazy high-volume 5-round decision win over Irene Aldana. No one really saw that coming. I think she was like 24% owned as the favorite on that slate, which is crazy. That never happens. But she's been dealing with some health issues. She's had some kidney issues. Who knows what that was from? Maybe something to do with why she looked so awesome in her last fight. She had a knee injury when she was supposed to fight Dumont back in December. She was going to take that fight at 145, I believe. So it's been a little while since she's fought. At 40 years old, a year and a half later, who knows what she's going to look like. But the last time we saw her, she looked great. She landed twice as many significant strikes in that fight as she's ever landed in any fight in her UFC career. And she has 8 5-round fights, so it's saying a lot. I mean, twice as many, just to reiterate.
Yes.
Like 154 to 77. Completely crazy. On top of that, she landed 5 takedowns in that fight. In her previous 11 UFC fights, she landed 6 combined takedowns. So Holly Holmes fought like a woman possessed in that matchup, scored 133 DraftKings points, had never scored well outside of a finish before that. So, I mean, it's understandable why she was only 24% owned because that came out of nowhere. She'll be higher than 24% owned here, but she's still going to be lower owned than your normal 5-round favorite. Based on her price, she's pretty expensive. I think most people are going to, want to go elsewhere. There's a few other good options, specifically Almeida, but we'll see how it ends up. But like I said, this will be her 9th 5-round fight in the UFC. She's only 3-6, but she's fought everyone basically. So she's gone through the gauntlet. On the other side, we have Vieira, who this will be her 2nd 5-round fight. She's coming off a 5-round low volume decision win over Miesha Tate. I believe you were a fan of that slate last I checked. And just Vieira slates in general, they're normally 6-figure slates. So let's hope for another one.
Yes,
but Ketlin comes in 30 years old, BJJ, judo black belt. She's built like a linebacker. She's generally slowing down the pace. She's not going to come charging in. Both these fighters are kind of counter strikers. Ketlin is going to be looking to get the fight to the ground. Unlike her last fight where she was going against a one-dimensional wrestler, now she's pretty much going against a one-dimensional striker in Holly Holmes as a boxer, except for, when she fights Irene Aldana, apparently. But you look at the way that Ketlin's going to come into this fight, and it's probably going to be a grappling-heavy approach. So from a DFS perspective, at her cheap price tag, if she can get the fight to the ground, she probably scores pretty well, returns value, even though historically she has not scored well. She's never topped 89 DraftKings points in a fight. I think that, it's one of those things where she's probably not going to win, but if she wins, she's going to end up in the winning lineup. So, you can figure out your exposure accordingly based on that. I still think Holly Holmes is just going to dance around the octagon and point her up. Holm Has a good takedown defense, 76%. I think she's been taken down like once in her last 7 fights. Hasn't faced a ton of attempts, but in general, a tough person to take down because she's constantly kicking from distance, moving around the octagon. Ketlin isn't especially fast. She's strong, and she's got decent grappling. So, if she can get Holly to stand still, Ketlin has the potential to land some big shots. But I think in general, Holly's going to be quicker, more mobile, faster, landing more strikes. Tough matchup for Ketlin Vieira overall. But you do get her cheap price tag in DFS. So for high risk, it's kind of interesting because it's going to be lower owned. There's some reason, to think you should play a little bit more, even though it's going to be tough for Holly to get there without, a well-timed knockout. Like, I don't think she's going to put up another massive score. She's not going to land 5 takedowns on Ketlin Vieira and her 90% takedown defense, even though she did that against Irene Aldana and her 93% takedown defense. Irene Aldana came forward in that fight like a zombie, chasing Holly around the octagon. Ketlin's not going to do that. So I don't think we see another explosion here from Holly. Makes it tougher for her to get there at her price. Ketlin can get there a little bit easier just because she's a cheap play. So, I think, even though we think Holly's going to win, you probably want to have as much Ketlin Vieira as Holly Holm just because it's so much easier for her to end up in the winning lineup if she wins. But it's a little bit of a weird spot. I don't have like the definitive answer of this is what you should do on this main event because there's so many ways Holly fails and there's so many ways Ketlin loses. So it's a little bit of a tricky spot, but overall lower owned. In low risk, I think yeah, great advice. Just do whatever you want. But
That's why people tune into this show, so we can tell them, you know what? Here's all the information. You do what you want with it. Talk to me about low risk though, because we talk about lower owned fights and lower pace fights, but this fight for low risk cash contest, it does have that benefit of a high price and a low price fighter.
It does, and it has the benefit of probably going the distance, unless we see an unlikely Holm knockout or a Vieira submission. If you can get 5 rounds out of 2 fighters, they're going to have a pretty decent floor just from striking alone in addition to some takedowns. So I think their combined score is still something you want to jam into cash lineups. Get the cheap value on Vieira. You're probably going to get the win out of Holmes, and between the two of them, you're going to get a decent amount of scoring. So it's not like the best ever cash slate, but I think in low risk you're still going to stack them, and I think that's the approach. That's a more definitive answer on the low risk approach.
And I'm sure people appreciate that. And you can do it on FanDuel this week too, right? Because Vieira's priced down over there.
Yeah, you can. It's really weird. So they priced Holm up to $23, which didn't really make sense, and then they priced Vieira down to 13. So on a normal week, I feel like they would have priced Holm at 20 and Vieira at 16.
Right.
But I don't know. I think based on the options you have over there, I think you can definitely still stack that just based on how cheap Vieira is.
I guess final question for me. Any reason to think that because of this long layoff, because of the injuries, that we should have more Vieira exposure, especially at Holm's age?
I think that's a valid concern. I think that the long layoff and the age makes it a higher variance spot, which increases the range of outcomes. So if Holly doesn't look great now, like recency bias, 19 months ago, she looked great. But that was the last time we saw her. So if that doesn't happen, and if she looks old, and if she looks slow, and if Vieira can take her down and control her for extended periods of time, we could absolutely see a ceiling performance here out of Ketlin. And, Ketlin's coming off kind of a lower scoring decision win, so recency bias is going to have people a little bit lower on her. So I think that's a valid argument. And honestly, I think there's a few different takes and approaches you can take to this main event. I honestly think it's a tricky spot, so I don't have a great answer on anyone, but I think there are arguments to be made for fading both or playing both.
I think that's fair. I think that's totally fair. And I think I just owe it to Ketlin herself, where the first 100K, I played her opponent. The last 100K, I faded her main event. So now it's just, maybe I owe her and I should play her and win 100K with her just to round out the trifecta. So we'll see what my exposure ends up there. So, all right, let's move on. Let's talk about some fighters that we don't have a ton of data on. Again, normally in this section, we talk about fighters making their debut, what their historical tape looks like, and how we can anticipate their matchup to go in their first trip to the octagon. But we have a bunch of fighters who have just a couple fights under their belt. So, Jake, what I'm going to do, we're going to play this new game where I'm just going to run down the salary list and fighters who have, let's say, less than 3 or less UFC fights. And you're just going to tell me in 4 words, good fighter or bad fighter, and then good matchup or bad matchup. And hopefully that should let people know what to think. How's that sound?
Sounds good, man. Let's do it.
All right, Almeida, 9,400.
Good fighter, good matchup.
Hence the 60% projected ownership. Joseph Holmes.
Bad fighter, good matchup.
I think that's fair. Njoku Wani.
Good fighter, good matchup.
Okay, also fair. Elise Reed, she has 2 fights, so we'll go with her.
Bad fighter, good matchup.
All right, fair. Tabitha Ricci.
Good fighter, bad matchup.
Very fair. Medic, Uros Medic.
Bad fighter, bad matchup.
Love to see that. Okay, great. Here we got here. I guess we got Amandovsky, who hasn't fought in a million years, but he does only have 2 fights in the UFC.
Yep. Bad fighter, good matchup.
Interesting. And I think that's it. All right. So that was fun. Hopefully you can discern the information that we got there. If you want full breakdowns, of course, MMADFS.com. Jake breaks down every fight. He talks about betting and DFS implications. Of course, our daily plug highlights which of those plays are our top plays and then how to put them into your lineups depending on the contest that you are playing. All right, Jake, speaking of fights that we want to look at for DFS, give me one fight that you're looking to play both sides of. There are a couple on this card, but maybe one that you want to highlight that you think whoever wins likely ends up in the optimal lineup.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Chidi Dushko fight, I think that one's going to end early. I mean, I've always been a Todorovic supporter, at least back when he was good before he started sucking. It's a tough matchup for him, but I think he has a clear path to victory. Getting the fight to the mat, Chidi's terrible off his back. And if he can't get the fight to the mat, I think Chidi probably knocks him out. So I think that fight's going to end early in one of those 2 ways. So therefore, you want to target it.
Yeah, and Todorovic with the Louis Smoka game logs where he either scores less than 20 or more than 120. So you got to like that for DFS. Just got to pick which one is which.
Yep.
Cool. All right. You see the Prize Picks banner on the top of the screen here. Use code OCCUPY. Links in the description below. They have a fun setup where you pick props, parlay them together, great payouts, and the lines are pretty suspect for most sports. So Jake does a great job at his site. He puts some in the daily plug. So use the deposit code OCCUPY to get a 100% deposit match bonus. This week, Jake, give me a line or two that looks off to you.
Yeah, so I like the Michelle Vieira over 14.75 minutes. We're basically, betting on the fight going the distance there. If you compare that to the line, I think it's like 145 or something last I looked. So, I mean, obviously that's significantly better than a coin flip. And then another one I like is the Omar Morales over 86.5 points. We love that matchup against Medic. So we're basically betting on him to win there, more or less. Win and maybe get a finish or at least a high volume fight. So I like both of those lines.
Love to hear that. So speaking of Morales, that transitions us to the stream parlay of the week. And Morales is the cover boy of the Daily Plug. Make sure you check it out. The link's in the description below. OccupyFantasy.com. So Morales, Jake, I guess this will start with you. For those who don't know, our stream parlay, I pick a prop bet or a total or a side. Jake picks one. We put it together. We make a stream parlay out of it. And since we're talking about Morales, Jake, I guess you got to go with your side first.
Yeah, I really like his money line at negative 135. I mean, I think that should be way wider or narrower.
I mean, dude, I think, like, honestly, it could be one of those fights where the fight happens and you end up saying, like, wow, he should have been, like, minus 500.
Yeah, totally. He's either going to be minus 500 or plus 500 in this one, he's either going to get knocked out immediately, which I really don't think is going to happen. But, you never know with Medic. I mean, he just comes out swinging. But you got to bet against the Alaskan fighter here. Omar Morales has never lost a fight at 155. It was clearly a mistake dropping down to 145. He did that for 3 fights, went 1 and 2, back up to 155 now. Best matchup he's had in a while. He's gone the distance with much better strikers than Medic, and Medic has never been in a fight that lasted longer than 6 minutes. So really love Morales here, and we should be getting him at a little bit lower ownership since he's yet to explode in the UFC. But this looks like the spot.
Yes, sir. And because he's in the stream parlay, it means he will likely be on the plus 500 side of things, as these stream parlays usually work out. So, Jake, if you can hit your side, I'm going to try to hit my side. And my side is Sam Hughes to win by decision. I think it's plus 220, plus 215, depending on the book that you're looking at. For me, that really doesn't make a ton of sense. I don't think she's going to finish Elise Reed, and I think Hughes does have a great chance of winning here. Anything above her money line makes sense as a decision bet. So Sam Hughes by decision at plus 200 or more is an easy bet for me. So we're going to pair that together.
Yeah, I really like that bet too, man. Totally agree. She's not a finisher. Her money line at MGM right now is plus 130, and decision line is plus 220. Doesn't
Should
make a
be
lot of
plus 30,
sense.
plus 131 at the highest.
Right, right. So the two of those should be plus 455. So we're getting like 4.5 to 1.
All right, we'll take that. So Morales money line, Sam Hughes by decision. It's an easy parlay. We're going to hit that, and we're going to brag about it in 2 weeks because, again, we're off next week. No UFC cards. So for more information about UFC DFS, you want to get the best bets, you want to get the best DFS plays, you want to get the best strategies, check out our sites, MMADFS.com, where Jake breaks down every single fight on the card, histories, backgrounds, matchups, everything you need, betting and DFS implications. Check out his premium content as well. His archive, invaluable resource. Again, MMADFS.com. Follow Jake on Twitter at DFS_MMA. You can find us at Occupy Fantasy with the daily plug, the Occupy model, which ranks every fighter with our predictive metrics on FanDuel and DraftKings, and our lineup builder, which I've used to win 4 different GPPs in the last year and a half. So if it's good enough for me, it should be good enough for you. So go check it out, occupyfantasy.com/lineup builder. For Jake, I'm Brian. We appreciate you listening as always, and good luck at UFC Vegas 55.